Fred, you beat the Heat 25-5 in the third quarter. It's the second time a team has done that in the NBA this season. What did you say at halftime?
Nothing otherworldly. I don't know. I mean, just we just sat there and talked in this tenor and said, like, who do we want to be? You know, there's guys sitting around this building that hung banners. Like, how do you want to play? How do we want to feel about ourselves? And we just looked different after that. And but that was a collective discussion. That has nothing to do with me. That has to do with who these guys have been all year. And for whatever reason, we took a little break from that on Monday in the first half tonight.
Wow, what a night! What a crazy night! This is actually a natural reaction. I mean, this is one of the best nights in basketball that we've had all year in a long time. Of my life. I mean, it's been incredible. The Celtics with this unreal comeback, the biggest comeback in the NBA this season, 26-point comeback. They beat the Miami Heat 98-88. Let's talk about it here on the Garden Report.
Yes, I'm the boss.
Welcome to the Garden Report. I am Jared Weiss. I'm joined by Jimmy Toscano, Jeremy Karpf behind the camera over there. We've got the Facebook viewers here on the live feed. Let's do this thing. So it's 1:10 a.m. right now. The Celtics had an unbelievable game, but we had to watch Kobe Bryant have one of the most memorable performances you'll ever see. 60 points. That's not amazing, but memorable. 60 points on 50 field goal attempts in his final game, and the team still won. I mean, yeah, the fact that he's that old and can take 50 shots is mind blowing. So let's talk about the Celtics game here. They got absolutely destroyed.
I just picture Byron Scott just like, what can I do?
Did Byron Scott even say anything this game? we didn't get to watch most of the game, but I imagine
speaking privileges were revoked, I think, in January.
I'm pretty sure before the game he said, "Hey guys, Kobe's going to take all the shots. I'll talk to you after the game," and that probably is how it went. Yeah. Okay, so that's the exact opposite of what happened tonight with the Celtics, because they get absolutely vanquished in the first half. They go into halftime down 24, and Brad Stevens comes into Brad Stevens came into a locker room that was freaking out. Guys were worried. I mean, they were in a complete tailspin, about to lose all 3 games of the teams that they were fighting for that 3 seed. And Stevens sits them all down, lights a fire, a little bit of a campfire story time with Brad Stevens. I don't know, maybe they drank the Kool-Aid, but whatever it was, they came out with the best quarter in the NBA this season. They hold the Heat to a franchise low 5 points while scoring 25 points of their own. So second time a team has pulled that feat off in the NBA this season. They pull off a 26-point comeback, the highest comeback in the NBA this year. It was just mind-blowing. Joe Johnson was the only player that scored for the Heat in that quarter, and he had 5 points.
And if he didn't join the team midway through the year,
they would have had 0 points in that quarter.
That would have been amazing.
Because Gerald Green wasn't getting those buckets.
No, absolutely not. That was a UConn women's-esque quarter. I mean, a 25-5 score. I mean, that never happens in the NBA. You just never see something like that. That's like, video game stuff when you're playing on easy level.
We've always said Isaiah Thomas is basically the Breonna Stewart of the NBA.
I've been saying that for years.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years.
Jay Crowder's my Diana Taurasi. But it was phenomenal. And the team talked about after the game how, like Steven said to them, it was basically their make or break moment. They're spiraling heading into the playoffs, and Stevens asked them, "Who are you going to be?" He tells them about the guys in the crowd tonight sitting courtside. All the Celtics legends are honored. They had like every single great player that's ever played for this team that's still alive, minus Larry Bird. Where was Larry tonight? Come on, executive of another team, ridiculous. But it was an incredible night, and to have that happen in the first half in front of those players, the players that, I mean, just like the 60s players, the African-American players who went through the adversity that they went through. I mean, Bill Russell, not only was an athlete, he was a civil rights pioneer. I mean, the things that they went through and had this team that just can't even show up for the last game of the season in a crucial game, I mean, that was humiliating for them, and they admitted it. And when Stevens basically just calmly said, listen, look yourself in the face and decide, is this who you want to be? And clearly they figured out who they want to be.
Luckily, that wasn't who they wanted to be. Luckily for everybody in this arena, which, by the way, it was fan appreciation night, and these fans must have been thinking about leaving at halftime. Some of them, I bet you did.
Yeah.
A few of them probably left, but I mean, this is a team that was a complete 180, and in that first half, I can't explain what went wrong. I just think the Heat came out, maybe still coming off that game that they just played. They were just, they were on some momentum. They were on adrenaline. The Celtics came out flat as could be with all these legends that you mentioned already in the stands watching. Maybe they were a little nervous. Maybe it was a little bit intimidating seeing some of these faces. I don't think that was it, because they came out in that second half, and this is the type of basketball that when Celtics play with that energy, when they play with that defense that they're known for, that's what's going to win them games. They're not going to win games out shooting the opponent. They're not.
Sure.
They don't have a guy. I mean, they do have Isaiah Thomas, but he wasn't on tonight. His shot wasn't on, and he hasn't been on the last maybe week or so, or even longer, with that shot. They don't have a guy that they can rely. They don't have a Kobe Bryant that can shoot 50 shots a game and
Which
win,
they need,
and win
obviously.
that way. You know what I mean? So they need a total team effort, and they came out strong in the third quarter. They punched the Heat. Like I say, they punched them in the mouth. The Heat were stumbling around.
They kicked them in the balls on that one. I mean, they were ruined.
As some people would want to say.
I would want to say.
And they kept it going into that fourth quarter. They didn't look back. They wanted this game. It's unfortunate that it basically meant nothing in the standings. It meant literally nothing in the standings.
It actually meant worse for them, really, in the standings.
Right. But I will say there's something to be said for finishing the year strong and going into the playoffs on a high note like that. Because if they just limped into the playoffs, losing 3 in a row, and just getting blown out by the Heat tonight, if that happened, I mean, that's an awful look going into the playoffs. That's something that you're going to be thinking about the rest of the week until game 1, and maybe you're playing with a little bit of doubt in your mind.
I mean, I think that comeback is more important than your seeding.
I mean, that very well could
Yeah,
be.
you could get that 4 seed and still play like crap in the first round. But they had that momentum, that resounding moment that they can build off of. And the thing is, they had that moment a few weeks ago, and when they beat the Warriors, and they weren't able to build off of it. They kind of got a high there, and then they kind of lost their edge. And now they realize they really had to go deep in the pits to figure out how to, why having an edge is so important. And this is the kind of learning experience that you expect them to retain that edge as they go into the playoffs. And, they're going to face a good team in the first round, and then they're going to face Cleveland, whether it's a second round or if they were somehow able to beat the Raptors, who are still a really good team that people forget almost had the exact same record as the Cavs. I mean, they're a really, really freaking good team that has beaten the Celtics this year. So if they were going to probably not make it through the second round, regardless of who they're playing, but it doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to face Cleveland at some point, and obviously they could beat any of those teams, but it's not fair. You're just not expecting it to happen. So it doesn't make a difference when they face Cleveland. They're going to face them anyway. This way, they're going to face them in the second round. And you know what? If they beat them, then they've got another really good chance to make the finals. But it's probably not going to happen. So don't get your hopes up. So
the bottom line is this: you got to win on the road at some point. Whether it's game 1 or game 3 or game 7, you got to win on the road. Teams, they're not just going to. The Celtics, the 08 team, they were a team that they had some trouble winning on the road in the playoffs. They finally came through. They broke through. They beat the Pistons. They knew they had to win on the road eventually. They did. This team isn't that team, but the point is, you can but you can debate how important home court is. As soon as you win a game on the road, that home court is flipped. So, I mean, it's still up to them. They can take home court back in game 1. Sometimes players revel in that. They embrace going into enemy territory and sort of setting that tone early on. They take one of those first 2 games. Now all of a sudden they're sitting pretty going back to Boston with a 1-1 series.
And Atlanta's not the kind of place where you can't win. It's Atlanta.
Yeah.
They walk out halfway through games all the time there. All right, so let's go to part 2 and let's talk about Atlanta. But before we do that, we got to talk about SeatGeek. If you want to get tickets for one of these playoff games and they're going to be sold out, go to SeatGeek. If it's your first purchase on SeatGeek, just make a new account, use that. Put in the code CelticsBeat, and you're going to get a $20 rebate on that ticket purchase. So go to SeatGeek, code CelticsBeat, and let's do it.
My dad texted me. He said he's definitely buying playoff tickets.
And he's going to buy them on SeatGeek.
Tell him to go to SeatGeek.
Yeah, get that $20 back. Yeah.
I'm going to take that $20 today. Thank you.
And they're going to buy yourself a 1 beer at the game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we'll be back for part 2. Stay on this playlist here on the CLNS Radio YouTube channel or embedded wherever the heck you're watching it. This is the Garden Report, powered by SeatGeek on CLNS Radio and Celtics Blog.